Can you get? Are you able to get?
How many people are you?
6.
Far out. Move the thing, I can move it back.
How are you?
I can move it backwards.
Push.
Please.
Going. It's too close. Looks like we got 6 chairs in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can turn it this way. Yeah. It's all 6 chairs. Great. He'll show up over here, but it'll look We're live right now. So. The microphone's working all right? Yeah. Great. I'll have it on my phone and I'll check the audio and I'll make adjustments if I have to. Okay.
All right, fine. No, I was never talking about this regular. How are you? Good. Are you ready?
No, you're okay.
Oh, you don't have to talk to You get to relax.
Doing news. Doing new stuff.
Do you have a multiple?
If we did, I would use it. Probably your best bet. How many recorders do you have? Probably just stick it on the table. It's probably your best bet.
How are you?
I don't know. TV has a boom on it. There's no
Are you streaming this? Or? All right, for me.
Greg is. I think Greg is manager.
Mustard?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Greg.
Great. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I'm typically not. I typically do a report. I'll do it. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Hello there. How are you? We're gonna go a little old school here. This is a great ambient. I guess it's gonna get.
If you can't hear us, let us know or type in, make sure everybody speaks loudly and clearly and that everybody can hear. My name is Greg Lemon. I'm the editor of the Independent Record. I'm here tonight to moderate just the last of the several meetings this year in a forum format on the jail bond. And to my left is Commissioner Andy Hunthausen, District Judge Jim Reynolds, Sheriff Will Dutton, Nikki Sukonic, who's the McHenry Civil, and County Attorney Will Gallagher. So what the format we'll do is we'll have a conversation here at the table for the first hour on your seats there. There are notepads and pens on the tables you're sitting at. Those are for questions that you might have. By the end of the first hour, those questions should be in Eric Bryson's hands. He's gonna in an effort to lower your expectations. We won't, my experience is we don't get there all the audience, specific audience questions. So what we'll do is try to lump them in together on topics so that it might not be the specific question that you have, but hopefully it'll be in that general topic area that you might have. Because all started off, Andy is going to stand up and give us a little explanation on what the bond is and kind of a short history on how we got to where we are, so that we also start with a basic understanding.
Thank you. I'll take that too, Commissioner Murray, since you brought him up. I'll introduce him.
There he is.
Commissioner Murray, Commissioner Susan Good-DC, thank you, my partners at the County Commission, and thank you to Greg and to the IR. First of all, thank you to Dean Bingham for hosting us here at Helena College. Really appreciate it very much. And I want to, there's several faces in the room. I just want to say thanks to the Citizen Advisory Committee that participated in the planning over the last year or so. So if you guys can put your arms up, and I want to say thank you to you. And then members of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and these guys were all on that. So I just want to appreciate folks. And that leads me into really the history of this. So over the last 5 years, we've really recognized that we have a problem. And you've all heard about overcrowding. Our facility, the county detention facility, is way overcrowded. Right now, over double of its design capacity are in the facility now, and another 40 to 50 people on a daily basis are being housed outside of our county at our county's expense, at your expense. So the overcrowding issue is really something that is concrete and easy to recognize. We knew that that was a problem, but in addition to that, we know that our facility is a place that we were unable to do any kind of real programming there. There's no space to meet with people. There's no space to bring in trained volunteers to do education or address mental health issues or address addictive issues or whatever it might be that brought someone to the facility in the first place, and to try and reduce that recidivism as they leave and have a plan when they leave. So we were unable to do that. Our courts are constrained because of the facility. Our officers that are on the street are constrained because of the facility, and they, who do I arrest? What do I, how do I proceed here? Because we know that we don't have room in our facility. Some people might not come that should come, and some people, are leaving before they should in some cases. Leo Gallagher will talk about that as we go forward. So we knew we had to do something. We knew that what we're doing right now is unsustainable. We know that the costs are going to rise. The opportunity to really provide good public safety for the public out there, all of these people coming back to our communities, was really limited. We knew that we were having difficulty providing safety for the people who work in the facility, and we knew that we were going to have trouble for safety for people who are visiting the facility, those detainees. And all of that's really important. When someone comes into the facility, we are responsible for them completely. All of their medical care, all of their food, housing, whatever it might be. We as a community, us together, are responsible for all of their care. And it's really difficult when we can't provide that because of your constraints. So we knew we had to do something. We came together after the National Institute of Corrections visited us. We got together a group that is called the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And it's really made up of the people that work within the system, the lawyers on both sides that work within the system, city police, chief of police, the sheriff, both commissions, city and county commissions were involved, the administrators of both the city and county. So we involved everyone that works within the system. We said, what do we do? How do we address this? We know we have to address the space. That's an absolute. We cannot continue with the facility we have. What else do we need to do? We need to look at our system. So one of the things we did was we put together a citizen advisory committee, which was made up of about 25 citizens from all walks. And they came together for about a 9-month period and made recommendations back to this Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. They made recommendations in 5 categories. Issues in the facility: intervention and prevention, jail standards, pretrial services, and specialty courts. How can we use those programming tools to slow the rate of people coming into the facility, maybe work with people outside of detention rather than in detention, and then hopefully help them not come back. So that's really the goals of the system and some of the things that we were trying to change. So those recommendations were adopted, and they were passed on to the county commission, which ultimately has to decide to put an issue on the ballot. And we unanimously voted to put this on the ballot, and it is a new facility. You can see the schematic here, but it is a new facility that would house 208 people on a functional basis, and it would be something that could be expanded over time if needed, without having to come back to the voters for an ask. And we knew that we didn't want to do something that was really undersized, so that we would say, oh gosh, 10 years later we have to come back to the voters, we haven't even paid this one off yet, we're coming back to the voters and asking for more help. We knew we didn't want to do that, so we wanted to be functional, and we wanted to look at a 30 to 40 year planning horizon, so we tried to do that. In addition to that, the sheriff's office and the city police department are housed together on one floor in the current law enforcement building. They're very jammed there. So the plan was to move the sheriff's office out with the the detention facility. So they are together in the schematic, and the bond asks for $41 million approximately in construction costs, and that's a 20-year bond, and then $5.23 million, approximately $5.3 million in operations and maintenance, which is an ongoing ask from the community. And we knew that we would have to build a facility that lasts us that long term, and then we knew that we would have to ask for the money in order to run the facility and maintain it over time. And so that really is kind of the nutshell, if you will, and we'll get into the details now and discuss the whys and hows.
Great, thanks. So one of the pushbacks we've heard about the facility is the cost. And so I know that the cost of the facility has a lot of different threads and why it's being proposed there is proposed. I was just looking over the numbers here, and it says $240,000 annually to house inmates in other facilities around the state. That doesn't include apparently transportation costs and medical costs, delays, and things like that. Is there another solution besides such a large investment of capital to solve this problem? And if so, what might be that solution? And if not, why? You got it. Whoa.
Sir, been given a command by the judge to appear before you. Thank you, sir. So, basically, you're asking what's going to happen if you say no, correct?
Well, yeah,
I mean, that's boiled down to what happens if you say no.
sure.
You're our bosses, and we have to approach it like that. We give you the information. We let you know the seriousness of what we face. We let you know what's going to happen. We're not going to dramatize it. We're going to tell you where we're headed. But you're the voter. You have to live with it. We understand it's a big ask. But please let us explain how serious it is. As I do that, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce have my detention staff, so you have a face with the people who work. On Tuesday, they had a total of 103 in a facility that's really functional at 43. 33. Our total was 147. So if you would stand up, Detention Officers Association, you do just please. These are the men and women that are on the line every day. So when you're thinking about it, please remember them. please remember when they go to work, it's not if an assault's going to happen, it's when. So if you imagine going into a boxing ring, and I'm trying to paint the picture as I answer this question. So you asked me the time, I'm giving you the history of the watch.
Or I might have you time run out.
Right, very good. All right, I get the point. So what if it doesn't pass? We're going to have to continue to figure out where to put people that are violent. We don't have non-violent offenders in our facility. We have people that are there on felonies. The people that you have are also probably 90% in our facility right now, 90% pre-trial. So we have to find where it is. That 240,000 is going to go up. You have me operate under a public safety mill levy of $10.6 million. As that grows, and it will grow, I have to cut. The commissioners, they can't give me any more. Everything else is stuck other places. So I have to decide, we have to decide what we're going to do, how we're going to manage that. And as that number grows, the plan B is to figure it out. Right now, the judges are working with us to get people out. We have alternatives, 24/7 program, all of those. So we don't have room for, we barely have room for the chaplains program, we barely have room for the AA that comes up there. But there's a much better way if you let us. And we can just ask, that's plan B. It is a big ask, but it's also built into the future to say, yes, it would be larger for what we need right now. But as we grow old, look at myself, as we grow old, it's going to last. We won't have to come back to you because of the people who've been involved and say, you get one bite at the apple. It's a big bite. You get one bite. Well, that's why we're really intently going with this. This is our best plan. There is really no other alternative. If you say no, the business practices we're doing now is going to run out of money. And then you're going to have to tell the chief, me, who you want in jail. You're our boss. Who do you really want in jail? I think he's everybody. You can't afford it. So,
Nikki, go ahead.
Yeah, great. The ACLU in Montana has given a lot of thought as to what are better alternatives than just building a large jail. And I can tell you 2 years ago, I would have been dumbfounded if you had told me that the ACLU of Montana would have thought that a 200-bed facility would be a good choice for our county. But I can tell you that having visited the jail, I was rocked on my heels when I first came in and visited the jail. That was back in September of 2013. The sheriff and his staff welcomed me and one of our attorneys to come and tour. We had read about the conditions and read about the overcrowding. We knew about the NIC report. We knew that I heard from friends who had spent an evening in the jail and had heard about the conditions in there. I heard about people sleeping in the library and things like that. But to actually see it for myself, to see multiple inmates sleeping on the floor of a hallway or sleeping in the library, which was also the video conference room for court, which was also the place where attorneys met with their clients. To see the cramped conditions, to see double bunks, to see the visitation rooms, just 3 little spaces where friends and family could come out one-on-one time. We knew that the current facility could not be maintained. It wasn't safe for inmates, and it wasn't safe for the staff, and it wasn't what this community deserved. When you think that almost all of the people in the jail will eventually be returning citizens to our community, this wasn't the facility that our community deserved or that we needed. But were there other ways that we could deal with this facility? Were there other places to house people? There are. Right now, the county does ship people out to other facilities. That's correct. We could continue to invest in diversion programs, which this companion measure, the mill levy does do. But in the end, we came to the realization that we have to replace our current jail. And continuing to ship inmates out of the county, adding to the costs, adding to the transportation costs, taking them away from friends and family, breaking that connection, so that it's more difficult for them to reintegrate back into their community once they are released, making it more difficult for their attorneys to visit them. The other alternatives on the table didn't appear palatable to us. I wish that our county weren't in the crisis that we're in now with the current jail facility, but given that we are in a crisis and given that the other alternatives are not palatable, we couldn't in good conscience continue to wait until a new facility is built.
Ms. Reynolds or Joe Gallagher, Sheriff Dunn mentioned the state is sort of abrupt to say, well, if it doesn't pass and somebody's gonna have to decide who goes to jail and who doesn't, well, some of that is on your end of the justice system. I mean, are we to that point?
Well, I can pass this to Matthew. I'll take a crack at this one. Here's my perspective on it. I think Lewis and Clark County is now getting into a national discussion starting. Do we criminalize too much behavior and we incarcerate too many people? Those are good questions to ask. I think I've been a judge now for about 5 years. When I got up there, my goal was to look at alternative ways of dealing with some of the issues that we have to deal with in the criminal justice system. One of those issues led to the starting up a treatment court. Do we put people in jail because they have drug issues, or do we look at alternative ways to get them treatment and to get them services and keep them out of jail, keep them working in the community, keep them with their family? And so we got the treatment court going. We have 30 people in the treatment court. Even with those 30 people, if we didn't have those 30 people, a lot of those folks would be in the jail because they are, some folks think we take light hitters in the treatment court. We do not. We are taking serious offenders, serious drug addicts in the treatment court. Those folks in all likelihood would be in the jail. We could, in fact, take more out of the jail if we had more resources and more time. That's one of the reasons I like the plan that's come up with is there's more dedication to some resources. Virtually everybody that's in the jail has a drug issue. They all have drug issues. Should they be in jail? Should they be in the treatment program? The laws require that we treat them as criminals. That's what our laws say, that they are criminals. And so we're dealing with them as criminals. I don't, you say it's a part of my responsibility. I do not have open-ended powers to do whatever I want to do. And that was a lie they told me when I ran for judge. I didn't do anything I wanted to do. But I don't. The laws are what the laws are, and I've got to follow the laws. And so if someone is charged with taking care of offense, we got to deal with them as the laws to take them to deal with them. We have too many people in our jail, and as much as the judges have all tried to figure out ways to depopulate that place, we can't get them. We look at pretrial arrangements. We have a thing called the GPS monitor. People wear on their ankles. It tells where they are. We have none of those. We have the 24/7 program. We have other ways, but we just can't get it depopulated. The folks that are over there, and Sheriff Beckman is right, are the ones that need to be there. They are the ones that the community says we want this person away from us because this person is either not going to show up for their trial, or they're going to be a danger to the community. So we do that. Those are the folks that are over there. And if you want us to do differently, we've got to pass different laws. We have to pass different laws. And so we are constrained. My hands are as tight as anybody else at the table. I can't just say, oh, you got a nice space. You can get out of jail free today. I can't do that. It just doesn't work that way. So the laws are what the laws are, and we cannot get it down to a workable number of people at the detention center.
Thank you. So the problem that we're in is controlled a little bit by us, but it's also controlled a lot by existential factors. And that is, we have people that, as the judge mentioned, are coming into the system driver is addiction, and there's lack of education, and there is mental health is another big component. And those are unmet needs that will cost a fortune, they're long-standing, and they will cost a fortune to overhaul the various systems that are out there. And so for the last 5 to 10 years or so, we've been putting patches on this, and at this point, I want to just correct any misimpression. Maybe the sheriff mentioned it to you. We do not have people going to jail for minor misdemeanor offenses. They don't go to jail because they got a little bit of marijuana. Right now, people are going to jail because a judge someplace put a $2,500 bond on them, or because the state legislature has told us that they must go to jail as a misdemeanor because they are too drunk to drive, or because they've been involved in some event of domestic violence, and the law requires them to go to jail. So those are the misdemeanors that are going to jail. The felons, and so I don't know, maybe there's 100, what do we got, 141 or something? I don't know what the number is, but chiefly we're under like maybe 4, 5, 6 people in there on misdemeanor sentence or awaiting trial on a misdemeanor. So the notion that we're putting people in jail for minor offenses is something I would like to disabuse. People that are in jail are in jail because they have committed violent offenses, or because of addiction, they prove themselves unreliable to stay in the community. Or we have people that are there because they are mentally ill, and because the state system is so overburdened, they must stay in a jail because there's really no other system out there that will keep them and us safe from their mental illness. And the jail can speak to that. I think we probably got 2 or 3 in there that have been in there way too long right now. And so the legislature, to give you one small example, knows that their forensic unit, which is designed to treat people involved in the criminal justice system with mental illness, has a capacity of 35. They are somewhere around 55 now, and these are people that are involved in serious felony offenses that are there because the judge has determined that they need to be there because they are too mentally ill to proceed to trial. If they're just getting there for an evaluation, the forensic unit is backed up. I think they just recently turned the page and they are seeing people that have been ordered into Warm Springs for a mental health evaluation, and those orders were signed in January of 2015. That's how far that system is backed up from the state. And so where do this is something out of Darwin, folks. This is like Bedlam. These are people that are mentally ill, that have hurt somebody, that are being kept in county jails because the state system will not fund resources to try to get them out of our jails. And so the place where the mentally ill go, it's a place of last resort, which is the county jail. That's an example. Methamphetamine, pure methamphetamine, the sheriff and I attended a meeting this afternoon between Gallatin and Lewis and Clark County. Our task force seized 37 pounds of methamphetamine in the last 3 months. And 4 pounds of heroin. It's an onslaught of drugs. It's cheap, it's available, and if you attend our law motions on Wednesday or Thursday, I've been practicing in criminal law since 1978, and I have never seen the criminal justice system as crowded as it is now. And so we have
instituted these Band-Aids of 24/7 program. What we got 24/7, 100 people or so? And so those 100 people that would be in jail, but for the 24/7 program. We have the GPS monitoring. They cut them off and run so they can use the drugs. And now they've got another felony on it. We've got the CRT program. We have crisis response team, which is 24/7 to work with our jail to try to figure out if somebody needs hospitalization because they're acutely mentally ill. And we have special training for our officers to try to identify those who are mentally ill, so we can try to de-escalate the situation. We have, we go through Mike Soto with that one bail, we go through drug information systems. So we put these people out so that they have daily testing or testing 3 times a week for drugs, methamphetamine, and opiates, because those are what are out there. By the way, in that quarter, we had 110 pills. These are astronomical numbers. And so the state's response to the methamphetamine epidemic was several years ago, we got the Nexus program. Nexus, it takes 6 months, 6 to 9 months to get through it. It's residential, it works. It takes 8 months to get into there. And so the Office of Public Defender does what the Office of Public Defender does. They delay while these people are screened to get into the programs because they know that the prison system doesn't really rehabilitate in warehouses.
So sort of, I guess, off that conversation, it sounds like the Sheriff, you're talking about bricks and mortar, and a lot of what you're talking about seems to be programs, and there's two components to what voters are being asked to fund. One is money for operations, which include, by understanding, quite a bit of money for programs. And one is bricks and mortar, and they're, from my understanding, they go hand in hand. That was, I'm assuming ultimately that's a commissioner's decision. Why make the decision to put those things hand in hand rather than give voters an either or decision?
Well, thanks, Rick. I guess I'll stay seated here, but part of it is just the way the law is. I think that the bond for the construction had to be kept separate from the levy for operations and maintenance. So our bond counsel told us that those are 2 different requests, and so you have to request them separately. And we decided to put them together as well as linked together in that if you vote no for one, that's voting no for both, because we know that you can't build a building and not have funding to take care of it and to maintain it, as well as staff it and all those kinds of things, and run the programs that we're so and vice versa. You can't have the programs, but the building, though, you may be able to do some programming without a new facility. So they're tied together. And I would just say, I know that I opened up, but I didn't get a comment on the last question. And one of the things that's really important to me is I think that it's almost a foregone conclusion, the fact that Nick was saying that we cannot see this current facility going into the future, the bricks and mortar. It cannot sustain us into the future. But we also know that we cannot just build a new facility, and none of us want to build a new facility just to have more jail cells. That's not an interest. We want to slow the growth of incarceration all the time. We really want to put these programs in place so that we can reduce the percentage of growth in our facility, and we can try to serve more people in the community and address those things that bring them to the facility in the first place, like the mental illness, like addiction to drugs and alcohol, housing, transportation, all those kinds of things that are usually real issues with people, education. And I think the average age, or the average education probably is 8th grade in the facility, I think is what one of the surveys found. And we know that if people graduate from high school, they're much less likely to be incarcerated, and they're much more likely to pay taxes and have a job and all of those kinds of things. So we have a lot of work to do, and we need to address both sides of this equation. It isn't just about the bricks and mortar, it's an absolute fact, you know, we can't afford that. But we have to do something different in our system, and I think that's really the point that I'd like to make. Really, we've all tried to come together to do is change that system going forward and be more impactful on people's lives in a positive way.
So I'm glad you brought up education. My experience has been that when we're talking to people about the bond, they don't like to talk about schools and what the schools are facing. And when we talk to people about what the schools are facing, they don't like to talk about the jail bond. But it turns out that as taxpayers, the money's coming out of our pockets for whatever the school is going to need in the future, and they're still actively trying to figure out another path after that bond. And the county and the criminal justice system has a pressing problem. So to the voters who are going to have to make these decisions, prioritize, I guess, you know, why now should we prioritize criminal justice center before we prioritize or figure out how to fund what's going to happen with their education? Because it can be my sense, and maybe I'm all wet, but the defeat of the school bond wasn't because people didn't feel like everything was fine with the schools. Just like if this bond is defeated, I don't think that says everybody feels like everything's fine with the criminal justice system here. So what do you tell people who are that it's coming out of the same, the ass is coming from the same wall?
Can you go first?
Well, I mean, there's
I'm happy.
4 elected officials up here, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. So I think it's a fair question to whoever wants to have.
Anybody like that?
Well, I guess I want to emphasize what Neil Gallagher said. You know, if you folks came to our law in motion schedules, and that's our criminal dockets every week. I do about 15 cases a week. I have about 15 to 20 cases a week. I'm one of 4 judges, so you do the math. It's about 60 cases a week involving different people that we're faced with. I did not do criminal law as a private attorney, so this is an eye-opening experience for me. I looked at these folks, a lot of them are very young. They terribly who their parents were. So they were born into bad families. There's intergenerational things going on here. So you have some kid who's 24, 25 years old sitting in front of you. He didn't have good parents, or he didn't make it to school real regularly, and by the time he was about the 8th grade, he decided school's not for him. So he's dropped out of school, or she's dropped out of school, and they crappy jobs. They're working, your fast food workers, your hotel maintenance people, housekeepers. Those are the kind of, not to say those are crappy jobs, but they're limited jobs. They have no view of the world as anything other than a flat plane. They don't see any future for themselves. They have no hope because they've never been told that they should have hope. And so it's very depressing on a weekly basis to look at those kids. Everybody's a kid mean word, but look at these young people and think you are going to be locked into this judicial system unless we do it differently, unless we come up with a different way to handle this. And that's where the programs come into play. We've got to do it differently. We can't keep doing the same things. Keep people in jail, keep people in our prisons. And you want to talk about prioritizing, there's no choice. What's it cost a day to keep somebody in jail, Chuck? $123 a day. Now, I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay $123 a day. We've got other ways to do things. But we've got some people that need to be there. But even if you've got 60 people a week coming in, they are not, they're not light hitters, folks. I'm a district court judge. I'm not dealing with misdemeanors. I'm dealing with felonies. And these folks are heavy hitters. They have done really bad things in our community. These are doing bad things, but we've got to protect the community from their behavior. But you gotta pay for it, you gotta pay the piper, you've gotta pay the piper for that. So it's not an either-or situation, so much you gotta do both. You have to shorten the schools. That's terrible too, because in the end, what are you going to do in the class I talked about? Fully educated, no future prospects. It is depressing. I always view life as an escalator, sort of doing better next year than it was this year. These folks view life as just this flat point. I'm working at Burger King today. I don't think I'm going to be doing anything other than working at Burger King 5 years from now. They've got no skills. They've got no. We've got to figure out a different way to deal with those folks. And this program did that.
I agree that I don't think that the question for our community is a question of prioritizing our schools more important than public safety. Is public safety more important than schools? I think the question for our communities is are the measures before us smart investments? And later on, when we get around to having another school bond proposal, is that a smart investment? I think the answer to both is yes. I think what we have before us is a smart investment for our community. When you think about people who will be returning to the community after some time in jail, when you think about our legal and our moral obligations to provide for a safe and humane facility for people to be held in if they're sentenced or unless to be held pre-trial. If you're thinking about the diversion programs that are included in the mill levy proposal and how those are a smart investment in keeping people in the community before trial, I think that that's the question for our community. I hope that people are working through those questions as they read these proposals. Does it seem like this is a smarter investment than continuing to do what we're doing? Sending inmates out of the county, increasing transportation costs, running the risk of some liability, legal liability, or God forbid, running the risk of a loss of life of an inmate or of the dedicated staff in the facility. What is the smartest way to spend our money? It's not schools or public safety. I'm hoping that we will look at both of those issues and say, this is the best way to address that issue, and this is a smart way to spend our money. I'm hoping that that's how folks approach this rather than in either or.
Mr. Gallagher? Yeah, I grew up in Helena, several from high school, college. This is my town. This is where I want to die. This is where I raise my kids. I've got 3 kids, all of them are landed. They all landed well, and they're all products of the Helena school system. And they competed in all the high-end schools nationally, and they're as good as the Helena school system is as good as it gets. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud my kids are there, and I'm proud I'm here in Helena, and I wouldn't want to live anyplace else. And it's a quality of life. So it's too bad the school levy failed, because people like us want to live in Helena because our schools are good. I've got a brother outside of Boston, and he picked a place he paid way too much money for, because that little sleeper town has the best schools outside of Boston, and his kids are all fine too. So if you don't fund your schools, your community is poor for it. That's one thing. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing, and who has not gotten up in the morning and some jerk has broken out your window and rifled through your car? It's a quality of life deal. Some guy is so addicted, he's out there in the night, breaking your window and stealing your stuff. Who wants to live in a community like that? So we need a way to try to address this problem and to change. So I'm a big guy. I cannot change in a little tiny closet. I need a space to change. We're trying to do a pretrial diversion. We haven't got any place to meet with anybody. We're trying to do triage for mentally ill. There's no place to do it. We're having people dealt with in an emergency room that should not be in the emergency room. Folks, this is dangerous. And so we need some bricks and mortars to have the space to do some of this programming and to do triage. You got to pay. So
another thing that, Mr. Gower mentioned, sort of, when I raised a question, I'm not asking you about this, is this sort of an incident, having to find a solution locally for some problems that exist in this way with either state law or state mandates or something like this? I mean, can our state legislators do better on passing laws that are going to address these issues? Because we can't be the only community faced with meth and heroin and the other laws.
Yellowstone County, there's a piece of the problem that we face for Yellowstone County is at 501 inmates in Yellowstone County. It's more than Yellowstone County has ever had. And here's a piece of the paper. Missoula County is calling me. They have a task force going there to try to figure out how to keep people out of their jails. They're looking at some of our ideas because they're dealing with them. Cascade County was open. We can't buy beds, I think, in Gallatin anymore because Gallatin's over. There's no, 100, whatever we're paying, 150 a day to get these guys out of our jail and dealt with someplace else. Well, those jails are open full too, and it's a function of we've got 2 pounds of people coming at a 1 pound system.
So is it a 1 pound system both locally and statewide, or is it statewide? So is there, I mean, we pass a bond, we pass a levy to fund the system. I mean, they come, the next legislature comes around, and one after that, eventually is the state gonna have to start spending more money on this too? I mean, function of, it's just gonna be more money from everyone, or are we gonna be out there on the limb trying to do it on our own bubble?
Go ahead, Al.
Well, I think what I was saying, the state has started, over the last couple of years, the state has started to recognize that local communities really are being pressed upon to deal with mental illness issues that the state has not really pitched in on a local level as well as they could. In the last few years, the state has started to invest more in grants to counties to try and do mental health diversion programs. And I think that the state is also recognizing that the inability to fund those programs earlier has led to all of these counties, like Leo was saying, to have larger populations than any of us would like to have in the jails. So I'm starting to see a shift of the state wanting to invest more, especially in mental health diversion programs. And we may see that in other fronts. There are other things that the state could invest in. Some of the pretrial service programs that Lewis and Clark County is looking at now, that I know Missoula is also looking at, and that Gallatin is implemented. There are a couple of different discrete areas where the state could be a partner financially with local communities, encourage local communities to put in place the diversion programs that we're looking at in that mill levy proposal, and to help counties get those up and running, get them going. I would love for the state the legislature to be thinking more about
that. I would say that they could do more. There are some good things happening, as Nick was saying. There are some, there's been a little more spent on mental health issues in the communities and a little more spent in terms of grants that we apply for. We're trying to get some of these urgent things going. There's money for it, especially courts. But it needs to be increased. I think in our community alone, there's 800 convicted felons that are on probation and parole. And, there's how many probation parole officers? There's just a handful. So there's no way they can supervise all of these people in the community at an adequate level. There's no way they can try and help those people really meet the goals that they've set to stay out of trouble with the law. And what we find is that it falls on the local communities to address all of these, what do we call them? revocations, when they
Violation.
violate their probation or parole, and it falls on local communities. And we fill our jails with a lot of those folks, and typically, well, or they, at least they're coming and going all the time, taking up beds. And so it does fall on the local taxpayer often, and as Commissioner Vesey said many times, the legislature, one of their goals, at least recently, has been to get in and out of that session as fast as possible without raising taxes, without putting any more reliance on state dollars. And what that does, it just sends it down to the local level. And what option do we have? The only tool we have at our disposal essentially is property tax. And so we come out to the community and ask for a raise the property taxes. And so we feel that in some categories the state's in well, in other ways we feel put upon by the legislature that they really haven't been a partner at the level that they could or should in some of these areas. And so I think we'll continue to explore that, address that, but this is the deck of cards we've been given, and we have to, none of us are excited about being here tonight and say, hey, let's have a meeting and tell people we want them to give us $40 million to build a new building. That's not an exciting proposition when you're an elected official. But we have a responsibility to address this problem. It is a community problem. It is our problem that we have to address. And so we have a responsibility to come up with plans and proposals that will address the problem and do it with the long view so that we're not having this conversation in a very few short years, but we hopefully have it long after most of us are gone, and we can address it then. So
let's, I'm going to ask you about that. So, I mean, one of the scary, I guess, is the word, parts about this is that, it's just been a problem for 30 years in the making, but it's probably been, it's now reached a critical point where, you guys are making that clear tonight. So what is it about this proposal that keeps our kids who will be living with and having on with their own families in 30 years from having to pony up a whole another big lot of money? Like why? What about this proposal is forward thinking enough to avoid that? Is it the amount of money you're asking for? That seems like a lot, or is it the way the proposal is put together? Can you explain that? If that wants to.
Yes, love to. Enthusiasm. One of the issues that we face is exactly that. One of the things I wanted to comment on, yes, was it a prioritization? And in our listening sessions, it will be that. We ask that you examine what you said. Is it worth the investment? Is it worth those kind of things? And we hope to make you realize tonight that it is. So why is it as big as it is? It's exactly what you just said. So we get one bite at the apple. We don't want to have to come back in 20 years and say, that building you just paid off, we need a bigger one. Yes, it is bigger than what we need right today. And hallelujah for that. Hallelujah. Because we don't want to have to come and ask your kids, your grandkids for this same issue. What we're trying to do is say, let's get together as a community and look at the future. It is bigger than what we need right today. But if we build right today, how irresponsible is that? And I don't know that my staff would like me. I don't know that I'd like me. Because you have to look down, what are we leaving for our kids? Now we're going to say in 2025, that's when possibly the 5 million will be of the operation. It's not going to be 5 million right away. But understand we're going to grow by 17,000 people in the next 15 years. That's according to the planning department. You can hold them accountable, that's where I got the number. The issue is how much per person pays for that. Also, how many people come in that will come into our system. Can we plan for it? Bricks and mortar aren't the answer, and those people who have told me that, we certainly agree. We listen to you, and there are people in this room that said we won't support just building a bricks and mortar new jail, because what you're doing is not helping our community. But you implement these things that we're talking about, we'll support it with all our might and have. Because we believe in it too. We don't like putting people in jail, but we also don't like you getting assaulted. We don't also like deputies getting killed. Great Falls, Montana. Gentleman gets out, they're crowded. Sanchez. Kills a deputy. That is prioritization. And that's why we're passionate about it. But understand, we're paying, we're property owners too. We're asking you, I'm begging, please help. But it's you that's got to decide. It's you that have to decide, is this worth the investment? And we'll hear what you say. But that's the answer. Yes, it's built to go more than 20 years. If it gets, if the population gets to 200 or 300, the area is built that you can put it in. And if we've done it right, which commissioners tell me they will, they're telling me I will, that we'll put capital improvement plan. So when it comes expansion time, we don't have to come and ask you for that money again. We have room to expand if we have to do it in that capital improvement plan. Hopefully we don't have to do it, hopefully. But if we do, it's there, we're not landlocked, and we don't have to come and ask you, say, you know, when we were there, we just didn't anticipate these new laws. So yes, it's built bigger, it's built to go in for longer, and that's why. It's not built overly huge, you're not gonna be paying for a bunch of empty space, but it's ready, and we don't have to come and ask it again. So it is bigger than what we need now.
Well, it's a good,
Well, let me just make a comment. I've talked a lot about diversion and programs, and I am one of the folks that Sheriff Dutton referred to, that I wouldn't have supported building a building if we were just going to continue to do business the same old way. This program, this proposal has, you know, we're going to deal with education, we're going to deal with addiction, we're going to deal with mental health issues. Those are all things that are being not dealt with at present with the folks on the facility. The judges, you know, I'm only here speaking on behalf of myself, but we talk all the time about what can we do to depopulate the jail. We have taken every step that we think we can take in good conscience and letting folks out. But there are some folks over there that you do not want to meet as you walk out of the door. I will tell you that. There are some folks that's where they need to be. There are some folks that if we were to let them out, they would not show up for their hearing next week. Those are the folks that, under law, we're required to keep in a facility. And we cannot, in good conscience, I couldn't sit here in front of you and tell you that I think we can get down to 54 inmates over there. We just are never going to be able to get down to that. So the facility we have is inadequate. Those folks are being denied adequate treatment. They're in there for up to like 6 months at a time. So they're just wasting time unless we do something. I want to look at all the ways to do things differently. Look at the pretrial diversion programs, the special treatment court programs, the 24/7 kind of programs. We got to really utilize those. We do not have an adequate jail at this point, and try as we can, the judges can't get us there to make this adequate.
so we'll take a really short 5-minute break and we'll collect your questions. And then we'll come back and we'll start going through some votes.
If you hand them to the middle, then I'll come by and grab your questions. Please. Everyone?
Thanks for all the great questions. We didn't, aren't gonna, like I mentioned, in the beginning, we're not gonna address all of them specifically, but Eric told me that they'll all be on the website. What website is that?
lccountymt.gov. There's a link on the lower left-hand side. This is Public Safety Initiative. We will respond to all the questions that were written in writing. Folks that are frequently asked questions tab, it's on that website. That website also has a place where you just email questions that come straight to me, and I've done, I think, a really good job of responding within 24 hours to any question anybody's asked about this initiative. So anything he doesn't get to, we'll post on that frequently asked questions document.
Could you write that website?
I can't. Is it on here? It should be on the handout, but I'll write it in.
And the Commissioner Hunthausen was just telling me that some of these questions might also already be addressed in frequently asked questions, so make sure you check it out.
I have horrible handwriting.
It's on the third page.
What do they click after they go there?
Lower left-hand tab, there's a button that says Public Safety Initiative, and it's got all the information that you want.
Okay, thank you. So what Eric was able to do is sort of consolidate these questions under sort of general topic headings. A lot of these have to do with specific criminal justice questions. So our experts up here. So and I've heard several people ask this about why build a new construction out in the valley? Why not redo our existing structure? This question also, one of these questions also brings up the point is, rather than maybe get back to the legal position, it's got to be a big buy it all at one time, but would there be an opportunity to phase in construction to meet the immediate needs and then add more? So first, why not the existing structure and what would be the opportunity to phase in construction?
The building we're in is not big enough. It never will be. It was functionally designed to operate its best at 43. No matter how you slice that apple, it's not going to have the space. If you poured in an extra floor, it's not going to. We've had professional engineers look at it and say, is this something, even if we expanded in the same footprint, would it meet our need in 15 years, 10 years? And the answer is no. Currently, there's no way to design what's built there. It's a good building, it's a great building, but it's over full. 43 is our maximum capacity, 54 is full. And you shouldn't ever be full, because that means people are put where they shouldn't be. They're with people they shouldn't be. Now, 103. So the answer is no. We looked into it. We've had professional engineers come in and look at it, say, could we design this? Even if we designed it or bought the building next door, we're still landlocked. And that was the issue. That's why we didn't go.
So there's no opportunity to expand the footprint?
There is an opportunity to expand the footprint if we were to buy it, but it would be money down the drain because you're locked in. We couldn't expand as we are now, as we hope to now. We'd have to come back to you and ask for more money. So it's a bad term, but good money after bad. It's not a good appropriate, and it's not being good stewards of what we're asking for.
Just on top of that, I think that it's important to understand that we looked at 10 or 15 different sites around the community, including the existing site, and expanding there, which is really difficult. You have to buy property, tear down buildings, all this kind of thing, and then you're still right downtown in the heart of the city. So the idea was to try to be somewhere where we could be on city services with room to grow if that's necessary someday down the road, as well as allow the sheriff's department, which responds to the county, to respond to the county from a site that is on the edge of town versus downtown, having to run code all the way through town. Half the response time is getting to town before you can respond to the county. So it makes it really difficult. And when you look at the future and when you say, we do not want to repeat what happened. So the folks 30 years ago did the best job they could with the property they had and the space they had. What we want to do is say 30 years from now, when a commission in a community or elected officials, the sheriff in a community are having this discussion, they can say, you know what? They thought ahead. They have space to grow here. The building was designed so it could be added on to. They saved money to do that. And it's a facility that we do not have to go back to the taxpayers and ask them for more money. So it's all, hopefully we're thinking ahead and we're trying to make those kinds of decisions.
Have you, in the process, did you explore any other financing options? I mean, this is all on the taxpayer's shoulders, but are there really other options, grants or state or federal programs that can chip in on a cost like this?
Yes. So the majority of the funding for the bricks and mortar, it is ours. And what the sheriff talked about, the day that this opens, it won't be full. We're of course looking at that long-term planning horizon. And so there is potential for having some of that space be taken up by other counties that are suffering what we're suffering right now. And we could use that revenue to pay the debt off sooner. We could use that revenue to save for future needs if we needed to. And as well, like we're doing now and will in the future, we will apply for every federal and state grant that is related to these operations that we can. We have some mental health services. The limited mental health services we have in the facility right now are paid for through a state grant. We have gone after federal grants for both the drug task force and including officers for DUI. We've gone after grants for mental health facilities in the community, prevention and intervention. We have a Journey Home, which is a crisis center in the community. A great chunk of that was paid for through a grant from the state. And so we will pursue every option we can, and of course we will go after the legislature and ask them to partner with us more than they have in the past.
Yeah, a long time ago, I think Judy Marks was governor, that's all I know. We recognized that this was a problem. And so I was part of the delegation. We sat down with Bud Slaughter and said, you know, they were building, the state was in the business of expanding them. And so you may recall Cascade got their place built, Missoula got their place built, maybe Yellowstone has some money in the game too. And so they said, okay, well, we're looking for 220 bed facilities. That was 10 years ago. And said, we'll build it and we'll lease back half of it from them. And the decision at that point was that, did we want to become a prison town? Because if you have 220 beds, we take 110 of them. That's 110 long-term state prisoners that need to be in a high security place. And with those folks comes all the social ills that follow them to the prison town. And the decision was, and they were looking for, particularly at that time, they were looking for people to take the most difficult of prisoners that needed special needs. Translation, sex offenders, highly violent people. And so at that time, although the state was willing to offer half the money, we would have to take half the problems. And the decision was made, at least the decision then was no. As it turned out, after DOC made that promise and they leased it back, as they made the promise in Missoula and other counties, they turned around when the budget got tight, they changed the contract, and all those places didn't cash flow. And may I add that this last session, it cost how much did they keep somebody in jail? $123 to keep somebody in. A large share of our people are in there because they're DOC revocations, or they've been convicted and they're waiting for sentencing. And DOC doesn't buy that bed until they go to court and the judgment enters a judgment saying they're going to go to a DOC bed. So the game here is that they are sitting there on Lewis Clark County dime at a cost of $123. And the last 2 weeks of this legislature, they came in and they balanced that budget by reducing the fees that DOT pays the counties from $75 to $69. And we never saw it come.
It was 92.
Oh, it was 92 to 69.
92.
We never even did a duck. It just happened. So that's our state partner, folks.
There's sort of a, we talked a little bit about sort of the need for a bigger facility, but we've also talked about the need for money to operate programs to help keep people out of the facility. So there's a bit of a dichotomy within the discussion of we need to build a bigger facility, we need more money to keep people out of the facility. So explain that to me. And the question, there's several questions. One dealing with recidivism rates and will the program impact the recidivism rate? Will we need more judges? Will more judges reduce wait time and make it more efficient? So, but to me, I mean, it seems like some of that comes back to programming versus facility, and if you increase the programming cost and you increase the facility cost, how do you balance that out?
I'll say, ideally, I would have liked it if our county had been able to and had decided to make those investments in pretrial diversion services, in some other programs to keep people out of the jail before we reach the point that we're in today. I wish that we already had a better picture about how many fewer beds we would need if we had those programs in place. I do think that there is a reasonable hope to believe that the investment that we'll make through the mill levy and some of those diversion programs, they keep talking about pretrial services. This is a program where you can give Judge Reynolds better information about who should be released before trial. That programs like that can reduce the number of beds. I think there's a good, strong, reasonable hope that we won't need all of the beds that we're building. And I think that that's unfortunate that we're in a place now that we do have a proposal before us to build beds that if we're successful with the mill levy money, we won't need. I'm hoping that we will be successful in not needing those beds. So yeah, I understand it's a confusing tension, this idea that we're putting money into both pots. But unfortunately, the crisis that we've reached with the current facility does require us to replace it now. And if we're going to replace it, we should also be smart about investing in those programs that are going to reduce our need for more beds too. It's not ideal to do this way, but it is a reasonable approach given the situation that we're in.
Mr. Gallagher, you had your hand up.
Well, Gallatin funds their program is doing a $1.2 million. Is that what Eric told you? 1.2?
Total cost of operations, yeah, but that also includes the payment that the county puts into their pre-release center. If you wanted to use a ballpark number for the alternative programming, Gallatin County funds and the general fund, $1 million a year.
Okay. And we haven't got that. So that's the tension. And there's always terrific ideas out there. We don't have a place to do it. And there's no money in the general fund to do it. So we looked at doing an RFP to do to identify people that we can get out of jail quicker, to have a system where we can do a risk assessment, get them out, and get them out of jail hopefully in a week, 10 days, and go to a judge. And when we looked at it and put our RFP together, we're going to about $78,000. We don't have it right now, so we need to find some tax stream.
And to touch on recidivism, that's one of the hopes of this new facility. Judge Reynolds talked about what a wasted opportunity we have when people are sitting in jail serving a 6-month sentence. With our current facility, that time is wasted. That's time that they aren't working on a GED. That's time that they aren't getting into treatment programs or into classes or counseling in the jail. I bet there are a lot of people in this room tonight that would be happy, would be happy to volunteer for a program at the jail that would reduce recidivism, that would take advantage of that 6-month window as a point of intervention, but we just don't have the space for it right now. So that's also another area where I see the money for the programs and the money for the facility dovetailing and working together. The new facility would provide spaces for community volunteers and others to come in and work on programs that will reduce recidivism.
Just along those lines, I think it's really important, and I'm glad you spoke to that, because the recidivism rates and the opportunity we have for intervention with this proposal is really great. Right now, we are, because of our constraints at the housing, we're just holding people. And that worked for 9 months and came up with excellent recommendations to try and address how do we keep people from coming into the facility in the first place. When they're there, how do we try and meet their needs and treat them keep only the people there that really need to be there. And when they leave, do they leave with a plan so that they don't come back? How do we reduce that recidivism? And all of it together will and can really make a difference in, like I said earlier, in that growth that we've been seeing over the last 20 years. We want to slow that growth down and make sure that the people that really need services are getting those services, whether it's in the facility or out of the facility, and how do we keep people coming in? How do we break some of those chains and see family names coming through and through and through, and many people have been incarcerated multiple times, and it's generational. How do we break those chains? How do we identify people early in our community and address their needs? Say, this is an at-risk person, whether it's a mental health need, whether it's an education need, whether it's housing, transportation, whatever, and we try to address those needs prior to them coming in. And that's not the county and the taxpayer necessarily doing that, but our local, connecting them with local services. And then when they're there, how do we make sure we identify them, those needs early, and address them? And then when they leave, do they leave with a plan not to come back? They're all coming back to your community, our community. How do we keep them from reoffending and spending our money over and over again with the same people and same families? And I think that the programming side of this and the recommendations from the Citizen Advisory Committee are really a great start and a great direction that we can take.
Great. So there's some questions here on the trend, further questions on some of the trends that have been discussed. So it seems to reason that the population over the next 15 years increases by 17,000 people. Sheriff Dutton mentioned that the number of people that need to be incarcerated is going to increase as well. But there's also somebody in this conversation I believe that there's more inmates now than there were in the 80s as a percentage of the population. And I don't know if that's true or not, but can you maybe speak to some of the trends that demographically that are leading to this problem, and maybe turning the screws on it a little bit now versus 30 years ago?
Well, 30 years ago, if my wife slapped me around, she didn't go to jail. She goes to jail now, and that's something that was driven by the legislature. And so, second time she does it, she's going to go to jail for 7 days. And the third time she does it, she's going to go to jail for 30 days. So that's just an example. Same with DUI. So the legislature has, since those days, has said it's mandatory and takes away from the judges the discretion to not put certain people in jail. So that's something that's driving. The other thing that's driving it is, in my opinion, the purity of the drugs. In the 70s and 80s, people get loaded on marijuana, and that is not methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is 10 times more addictive than cocaine. And it's a horror. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what's driving a lot of our jail population right now. And then we have the whole business with mental illness. Mental illness was probably treated better in Montana in the 80s. And so we went to a system that reduced the availability of community-based mental health. That was driven by the legislature and by the feds. And so right now we have a mental health system which we are rebuilding, but it was built in the 80s. And so if you look at drivers from the legislature seeking more aggressive punishment, mental health system was broken, and addiction, which is driving the bus now. And frankly, there's just not enough places to get people treatment in the community. And so the place of last resort is the county jail.
So does so looking at that sort of dichotomy we were just talking about in the last question, does that is that dichotomy sort of exacerbated with this idea that we want to provide locally funded pretrial services, mental health services, and the services that will keep people in jail, but state and federally are mandated to put people in jail for more things, mandatory sentences and whatnot, and a drug problem that's not a Montana problem, problem. So I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is we build a new jail, we're gonna immediately house more people just from our own immediate
Well, I would hope that it gives us space to implement some of these programs. I don't think that we're gonna get help from anybody. I don't think DC is gonna come into the bucket of money to help any of this. And I frankly don't think the legislature is gonna do it either. So, our community, we gotta pull together, we gotta figure out, we're not gonna build our way out of this problem. We're just not. And so, it's kind of fun to put some of these guys in jail, It makes me feel good sometimes, but we're not gonna build our way out of it. It's too damn expensive. I'd rather, for $145 a night, I'd rather go to Holiday Inn, and I'll spend 2 nights there. But that's what it's costing us, to put some guy in jail for 1 day, $145. It costs, put some guy in prison, it costs, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000. We could send the guy to Tufts. I mean, we're not gonna build a way out of it. And I don't think our community is gonna be looking to some sugar daddy in DC or at the state capitol that's going to help us here. We need to pull ourselves together, try to figure our way out. And that's, and now, I've been in so many meetings, driving me crazy. What the plan is what's before you. A lot of smart people look at it. We could probably do this or that and try to figure something else out. We got to, and you can't go build a tent city someplace. You can't put them in central school. They're going to hang themselves in central school. They're going to freeze to death in their tent city. They're going to climb through the roof at the Capitol at the mall. There's the ACLU is going to sue us because they can hang themselves any number of ways. You got to, there are jail standards that courts have told us we have to meet. And we're not meeting it now. These guys are being nice. They could sue us right now, shut us down. They're working with us.
I love you saying that. We do that.
They are. They're working with us. I mean, they're working with us. They're trying to work with us towards a solution here because I think they realize that it's not, that we're not going to work our way out of it. But ultimately, if you violate the Constitution too long, we're going to get some federal judge who's going to take the keys away from you and I and put it into their jeans.
Kind of stole my thunder. The issue is, think of this. Think of the big people that are frustrated and say, you know what, they did the crime, throw them away, put them in there, I don't care, it doesn't affect me. And throw the key away and just leave them there. Why are we doing all this special stuff? Those of us who are elected to represent you, raise our right hand and sworn oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the 90% of those in our facility are pre-trial. So say I was a bad guy. I'm not, but say I was, for example, and I went out and got some drugs from her and put them in your car. And then pulled you over just a little ways because you were irritating. You're innocent, right? You didn't put those in there. So when you go into the jail, you're in there. Imagine it's you. You're innocent. You haven't had a trial. You haven't had time to scream and say, it wasn't me. And I deserve a trial according to the Constitution. 90% of who we have in our facility. We do have DOCs that have been convicted. But please understand your plight is that we can't throw the key away. We haven't had a trial. And all of these things that come into play. So it's a new facility. The answer to those is very intertwined. 41 million to build a facility and to pay it off. 5 million is not automatic. That's the cost. We have to tell you what we could, the cap, what the tax we have. And hopefully that isn't until 2025 or longer. But we have to run it. We have to pay the lights. We have to pay the staff. We have to pay all of those. We want to put those programs in place. Matter of fact, we have to, because the people that looked at this and said, don't do what you're doing now. It'll work. But that's where that intertwined to that other operating money is. It's just operating money. But it's not automatically 5 million. One question we may get to, but if Eric could answer is, what about different taxes? I get the question, and it was a good one, about why not put taxes on license plates or just property owners. And I'm going to put it, may I put Eric on the spot for that?
Sure, please.
On the spot, sir.
Only if the judge tells me I have to answer. So I think what you're getting at is the frustration that we've heard from a lot of folks out here. It was reflected in some of the questions that came in. Why do local counties especially, but cities do it too, why do we always go back to the same tax base and ask for additional funds for infrastructure? Why is the property taxpayer the one that's burdened with the cost of infrastructure investments in our community? And the answer goes back to a lot of things that these folks have already said. It is the funding mechanism that the legislature allows us to use. And we're great at grants. We have, I think, the best grants program administrator in the state of Montana, if not the region. She is fantastic at getting grants and seeking funds for programs and bricks and mortar and startup funds for certain things. We can't get a grant to construct the detention center. I lived through this in a previous life in 3 attempts in Gallatin County, and we had that same conversation with the public. Why do you go to the taxpayers? And why don't you find other sources of funding? The answer to the second question is there aren't. The legislature in the state of Montana has determined that the funding of county detention facilities is an integral component of public safety and a county responsibility. And why do we go to the taxpayers? Because we can't have a meaningful conversation in the state about any other source of revenue generating without permission from the legislature. You get killed or run out of town or are forced to retire if you have any conversation about sales tax, local option sales tax, or different mechanisms to change the way that we fund things in the state of Montana. We fund based on property taxes because that's what the legislature specifies. One of the comments, and then I'll be quiet, I promise. One of the comments talked about the implications and how we show you the information to $100,000 and $200,000 market value home. We're required to tell you what the tax implications are for $100,000. We tell you what it is for $200,000 because it just so happens in Lewis and Clark County the median household value is $200,000. We don't tell you what it is for businesses. We don't tell you what it is for agricultural purposes because those are fairly individualized and difficult to determine. But the commenter was right. Businesses pay property taxes too. And the way that businesses are going to afford the property taxes is likely to raise the charges that they pay for the goods that they sell. So that tax and that implication of the tax, when we're solely relying on property taxes, trickles through our economy for important infrastructure investments. And if there was a different way to pay for it, my bosses and the elected officials up here wouldn't be sitting in this room right now asking for your consideration and providing education and an opportunity to weigh in on this piece of important infrastructure. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was a brilliant explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's another question that's here that you talked about a little bit, but I was wondering if we have the ability to drill down on that some. That is, the question is simple: is there a cost to the community for a no vote? And Leo explained, Sheriff Dunn explained, there is in Washington, there's various forms and others. But has the county gone through that process from an actual budgeting standpoint? Okay, if the bond doesn't pass, it's going to cost this much money for mental health services that would have been covered by the levy, but businesses now, this is what we're going to need. This is the cost we're going to need to transport prisoners. This is the liability, plus the financial liability should we that we need to prepare for. We're exposed to, because of the exposure to human rights type of violation lawsuit. Has the county and its departments gone through that? And if so, what are the numbers?
Real numbers are very difficult because of the amount of people that we have. But 240,000, I think, is light. That's what we're spending on out of county holds, right? The thing that we ask is, what do we do for mental health services? Our therapist, Jaden, oh, okay, he's here. We don't have room. A lot of the things that we're asking to do, we don't have room to do. So, out of county, why is our population so high? Because they don't have room for it. That's why I said it's going to come down to the worst of the worst in jail. And I never want to go to a spouse and say, I'm here because your brother's got stabbed. Fun passion. The other numbers are about what will we do? Transportation costs will go up. I guarantee you, on November 4th, if this goes down, this relationship will change. It's going to. Because right now we're focused on the same goal. But they're going to proceed with how they want to get this changed. If a judge, the county attorney mentioned this, a federal judge can come in and put a consent decree on us and say, you've got way too many people. But judge, we don't have any place to take them. It's not my fault. We're closing your place down. So that $240,000 could potentially go up. So it's hard to give you exact numbers. The cost of pretrial services, well, we can try it. We can work with it, but we don't have the money to pay for it. That's the issue in private companies, and those are difficult. Why? Because we want to have a sliding scale. There's people in our community, in our jail, that one of the reasons they're there is they're poor. They don't have any money. They can't afford bond to get out. So that's why they sit there. Those things will increase. And they're going to increase. We actually have to have a plan because if it does pass, we have 2 years to figure this out. Anyway, we have to be able, the staff is very inventful. And I'll let somebody else chime in here because I can go on and Andy, not as well as Andy, but I can go on.
No, but I'm not going to. The obvious is the problem doesn't go away if there's a no vote. We still have the problem. We still have to address it, and it's our responsibility to address it on your behalf. We have to provide the service in our community. So how are we going to do it? We're back to somewhat of a drawing board saying, you know, what do we do? In addition to that, we won't be able to implement the programming that we're talking about. We don't have the funds to do it. So, you know, the cost of human lives are enormous. I mean, the jail is absolutely no place to house someone with serious mental illness. And currently, aside from our state hospital, our community jails are the largest mental health centers in the state. And it's absolutely immoral, it's inappropriate, it's not okay. And we have people here right now that have family members in an isolation cell with serious mental illness for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's the most inappropriate place to house someone with serious mental illness. So we wouldn't be able to address those issues and the others. And the cost of materials, I talked to our architects, Mr. Goldberg's here. I forgot to introduce our architects and Slate Architecture, Scott Cromwell, and the folks from Slate. Thank you for being here and for your drawings. But they can tell you without question that next year at this time and the next year at that time, the cost of steel and brick and all of the things are going to be significantly more expensive. Cost of staff, all pavement, whatever it might be, are going to be significantly more expensive. So we come back to you with a new plan, if that were the case. And I don't know that the sticker price is going to be that much different. So we have to think about that long view and all of these implications.
Cost $1 million. That's what it costs in Gallup. To do what we want to do. A year. Right now. And by the way, interest is pretty low now.
So, you said something about having 2 years to figure it out if it passes. So what would be the construction timeline for bond passes? November, when would you expect to have the facility open and operating?
For the subject matter expert in the audience, I got 3 fingers, and I'm thinking that's 3 years. So, not 3 months, but 3 years from the time that it passes, the time you do the site evaluation, the site study, those kinds of burn-in periods, and then that you open it. So we're at crisis point, and we have to figure this out. So it is 3 years. Preferably it does pass. If it doesn't, you got to figure it out, and that's what you hired us to do. But we hope to have some kind of open site. We hope that we're bringing you a good plan. 3 years, the answer. Totally unfair. Tell me the time.
In the 3 open facility, assume there'd be the bonds would be, told and all that process. So what would, in those 3 years, what would happen with the levy?
Well, the levy, the approximately $5.3 million levy, we're anticipating that would ramp up over time. So we're guesstimating that we won't let $3 million until 2025. So in the meantime, it would gradually go up as we bring staff on board and as we as we get programs on over time. So the day one would be levied at 5.
So how would that levy be involved in construction of the facility?
Well, the design and construction would happen over the 3 years, and in that time, we begin to hire staff and begin to get programming online, and whatever programming we had that didn't rely on the facility itself, or that we could do, and at least in its skeletal form, we would start practicing that program.
So there'd be some.
Right.
And so does, and all stuff, but so does that, budget, is that bring the sheriff's department's budget for the fiscal year, or is that number of the county? How do I track this? Where do I look to see how I come to the end of my budget?
Generally, probably safety and
Okay.
But that's how it is now. So the answer to your question that I missed completely was, if the vote passed, that we can start some of those programs. We can start the pre-trial services, hopefully we get that in order. We can start the mental health part, that we can start preparing, getting those people trained, getting them up and going. So we don't build the facility, and then another 3 years, get those going. So if it passes, selecting the people, getting the people trained, and getting the program going, that we need before the facility is built. But we don't have room for them. But when we move in, hallelujah, brother, sister, we do.
So this levy with is money that's authorized to go in your budget, which is under the greater county budget. So you're for figuring out how much you want levied in each year to spend. You're responsible.
Well, I think on the operational side, we probably, as we've done in the past, a very good partner. We partner in that and say this is probably what we need to do. And I think the sheriff would rely on some of the staff outside of his department as well to help with some of the programming. Even mental health stuff, for example, and those kinds of things. So we're community entities and those kinds of things as well. So we would probably do it together with staffing. That would all be in his group.
I'm asking you one of the questions is how do you, or about overrun, I'm wondering, how do you arrive at the levy amount, and how do you ensure that that's enough, in perpetuity to manage?
It's the same as the public safety mill levy is now. It's supposed to have growth, it was supposed to have 3% growth each year, but it doesn't. Because of pocket that much. We can only grow as much as you grow. So we get 1 point increase in the mill levy instead of 3%. So it's just saying that you get a percentage of automatic. If there isn't people pay for it, you don't get it.
So the mill, you're at the levy, so we're all clear, the number of mills equals 5-point-some million change, but the actual levy, the mill value increases the actual amount you can levy in dollars from a dollar standpoint. Right?
More people would be paying.
So our levy and the money that we spend properly is left up to the people who
Well, and it's say, well, so spend it over here, ballot language, something else. So that's what tells you what you can spend it on.
and any of the, other way for construction costs or expansion.
Well, the construction levy, the bond that comes in would be to pay off the bond. So nothing else would be, but the operational levy is for that, for staff and the program.
But should future expansion say,
So that's what
30,
plan. Sorry,
that was their money built.
a capital improvement plan to start budgeting and saying, yes, eventually we will need, you just know it. We've done the number you do, and the inmate population parallels the growth of the county. So yes, we know that. So with not the bonding, we have to pay off the bond, and earlier the better. So that goes off your property tax. But the one, the maintenance one, we should be taking money out of that and putting it away in a capital improvement plan so when this happens. Or meeting with the financial gurus and saying, what's the best way to plan for the future? We don't want to make it so we can't operate. But how do we operate? I mean, it's like your house. When you buy a house, you don't spend everything. You know you're going to have to pay taxes, insurance. All those things you're going to need to do capital improvements to your own house. We try to budget for that a little bit each year. Same thing, if I can do it, you can do it.
I would just comment that the county has a very robust capital improvement plan for nearly all of our departments right now. So planning for roofs and furnaces and additions or trucks or those kinds of things that we know we're going to need. There is a guide for those future investments so that when the night or something, we're not saying, oh gosh, we're gonna find money to save. And the same thing will happen to this.
So I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your questions. We didn't get them all answered, but Eric said they'll be on the website. So with that, we'll end the forum. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Hi, how are you? All right. Yes. Yeah.